Welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Hope you're doing well today. I know I am. It's actually warmed up to 10 degrees in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is oh so exciting. Anyway, Awkwardly Awesome Podcast starts really soon here. Let me find it. Wait for it. Starts now.
Today's guest, Sheela Stuart.
Today I'm very pleased to have Sheela on the podcast. Very, very honored. And now I have her bio up, so I'll read that, which is good because if I didn't have it up, I would be making it up. And even though I've known Sheela for a long time, her actual bio is a lot better than me making it up, and she'll be glad. Okay, anyway. Sheela Stuart has a PhD from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln with an emphasis on augmentative and alternative communication. It's amazing that they make tongue twisters for people who have problems articulating. Her career has been focused on serving persons with severe and profound disabilities, providing clinical services, conducting research, and teaching primarily in the areas of AAC, augmented alternative communication, that stands for the tongue twister, and feeding and swallowing disorders. She is former chief of hearing and speech at Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C. She is an ASHA fellow from 2010. And at present, she is part-time lecturer at Faulkner University in Montgomery, Alabama. Please welcome Sheela Stuart.
Hi, Jason.
Hey,
Hi, viewers. I'm very honored and thank you so much for the chance to spend some time with you and talk about this subject.
Thanks so much for having me on. That didn't come out. Oh wait. Thanks so much for being on the show.
It's an honor.
So we've known each other for a few years. Well, actually, since I was about probably 5 or 6.
I was trying to think how old you were when I first met you. I couldn't. Because, the wonderful part, for my point of view, is from the first time I met you till our conversations today, we just seem to know each other and we enjoy each other and some of the same topics and sharing.
I always valued that about you. You don't only try to deliver the information or the skill. You really want to know the people you work with, and eventually from there we were able to become fast friends.
we're on a journey together. That's what it really is.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Like an epic journey, and and so many people feel like they are on a very challenging journey now with 2020
Right.
and now 2021. And and you were saying that your first step in helping people consider making changes was to find things that interest them. Why is that so important?
Well, for me, I think it's an avenue of engagement. Uh, if I don't enjoy something, uh, whether I mean, I don't purposely decide to disengage, but somewhere inside myself, I'm disengaging. I'm pulling back. I'm hoping I can get out of this as soon as possible. But if I like something, even if it's a side liar to the central thing, like I was saying to you, riding my stationary bike, I don't like doing that. But if I can listen to my mystery story while I'm doing that, I stay engaged and I do it. So when I would plan for offering ideas to achieve a goal of overcoming an articulation problem or improving language skills, I would know what the goal was I wanted, but I wanted to include some activity or some means of making it appealing to the individual, and then building ways to include efforts toward the goal. So, like I told you, that was really how I started dog therapy. Was if I had a child who found the dog at all interesting, then I would build activities for the dog to do, and oftentimes it would include then the child giving the dog directions. But of course, what the child had to say to the dog would be built so that they were practicing the language and speech goal that we included.
It sounds so simple, but and I don't know if our listeners have any feedback on this too. We would love to hear from you. But how often do we force ourselves to do things exactly in the way we have no interest in doing them? Like I must ride the exercycle without music because because exercising is hard work, and I must nose to the grindstone.
Well, and the majority of the people that I had the honor of working with had a lot of therapy. And I would say, on a whole, it wasn't fun. So then, when they'd approach yet another therapy session, trying to do something that they didn't feel very confident about their ability to get there, it was at very best hard, and then it just became disastrous. They didn't want to do it, or they refused to do it, or they did it half-heartedly. You were a trooper. You always hung in there. But I always did try to find ways that we could make up mutual stories about a sort of a mythical journey that we were taking. Or I often made the goals into dragons, and I drew pictures. I think I did that with you, but I did that a lot with guys your age. And I would draw pictures of the R dragon, and then we would try to slay it, that sort of thing. And we just plain always had to stop and just reinforce each other and have fun.
Well, yeah, it was great. I still remember I would get so frustrated about something, and you would take out the yellow legal pad and draw hills and valleys, and you would say, remember last week when you accomplished that thing? You were on the top of the hill, but now you're frustrated and it feels like you're at the bottom, but you'll go back up. And
Um, yours is a perfect kind of example, because yours involves both what we term developmental processes and compensatory processes. Um, when you have neurological damage, like you make reference to, the movement that you want to achieve is intermittent at best. And in your case, sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And you don't have a great deal of control over that. Some, but yet when you're experiencing that, it's easy then not to get the developmental stability that you could have if you made the effort. And it used to really break my heart that I wasn't better at finding a way to stabilize that neurological intermittency. Sort of like my voice nowadays.
so a lot of speech therapy is working with what's there, and in making incremental progress.
Very much so.
But so many of us look at our own lives and then look at our dreams and say, there's just no way I can get from where I am right now to where where I want to be. But yet you've been able to instill in me and many others that yes, through consistent practice, through coming to therapy, change is possible, progress is possible. Like even though I have the intermittent thing going on, it's not like I came to therapy and you say, "Hey, Jason, there's just nothing to do. Let's just give
let's
up
just play canasta. That's right. No, that would have been a terrible violation of the trust that you gave me. Now, there's an additional thing that we don't talk about much, but it's very much a reality. We all have a sort of personal essence that we engage with the world and that we send to the world. And from the time you were a little boy, I was always so thrilled that your essence was so beautiful. And I knew that if we could get you so that you could communicate intelligibly so people could understand, regardless of how they had to work at it, the essence would bring you through. And I remember telling your mother that, and she said, "Oh, I've known that for a long time."
That's wonderful. I hadn't heard that before.
But I was always banking on that. And so when you started on this journey to acknowledge and embrace that you weren't going to get to that perfect place that you had hoped for, but that instead there were so many other beautiful ways to live awkwardly awesomely.
And paradoxically, once I was able to give up the illusion of having to be perfect to move forward, a lot began to open up because suddenly there were just countless more opportunities if I didn't have to be perfect at each one of them. I could say yes to a lot more of them.
And of course, and this is what you're giving the world. No matter who you are, this is true. That none of us are perfect, that none of us get to where we ideally like to be, unless we give that up as you are offering people to see, and that we take and embrace and love what is. And what is, by some strange thing, then sort of grows on its own. So here's an example of one of my moments. I had a little person come in, and he was, I think, 5, and he has a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And when I met him, he did not communicate functionally. He talked, but what he said was not functionally appropriate to the situation, or it didn't reflect, as far as a listener could tell.
Like he used words that weren't related to what was going on, kind of?
Well, here, he would come in, and speech therapists, especially pediatric speech therapists, love to blow bubbles. So, and people would set it up to ask him to blow bubbles. And that was artificial and difficult to start with. But oftentimes he could get out the phrase, blow bubbles. But then he'd start blowing bubbles and he'd just perseverate with that phrase. Want blow bubbles, want blow bubbles, want blow bubbles. And he was sick to death of blowing bubbles, and he'd throw the bubbles and he'd still be saying want blow bubbles. It was miserable. And as a therapist, you just feel panicky because you're like, it's my job to do something and I don't know what to do. So these speech generating devices have helped a lot to provide the messages to start with. Well, we always said that the one criteria we had for bringing the dog in was desperation. If you couldn't think of anything else to do, maybe we'd bring the dog in and we'd focus all the messages on the dog. So that's what we did. And we had messages of put the hat on the dog and feed the dog a Cheerio and have the dog sit. And they were simple, like Ellie sit, Ellie shake, those. And then we had the pictures. Well, he was quite cognitively engaged, but we'd show him how to push the buttons and he'd do that and the dog would do it and we'd get through. But the first thing that happened was we had a kind of a dance going where he didn't go into that perseveration. Well, I'll jump ahead. He got to where he didn't need the message to go away.
Just a sec. Is that quieter, I hope?
Yeah.
So he got to where he didn't need the message.
He didn't need the device to say the message. He could just use the pictures and he would say the message. And he could go from one message to the next to the next. And at the end of his coming to us for therapy, he had gotten to where he could just say what he wanted the dog to do, but it was still sort of pre-programmed because we practiced this a lot of times. And suddenly toward the conclusion of one session, he came over to me and he touched me on the hand and he said, Ellie Wolf? Yes, you get it. It was generative language and it was a request and a question. I mean, that, I tell you.
So what, he touched you on the hand and said what?
He was asking me, does Ellie say wolf?
Oh my gosh.
Yes. That's what's possible then. To me, that's related to what you were saying about when you relax and you live with the difficulties, but you keep on interacting, the flower blooms. It opens up.
And when we get over perseverating over past ones and adapt, will you define perseverating? Not everyone might know what it means.
It's just repeating a behavior over and over and over again. And it's common when you don't know or can't get to the next behavior. And we all do it sometimes.
How often do we want something so bad and the way we're getting it is just not working, but we keep going down that same path again and again. and saying blow bubbles, and the universe is like, no, not blow bubbles, but we keep blow bubbles,
Yes.
thinking we'll get a different answer.
And see, blowing bubbles wasn't probably what he really wanted to do to start with, but it was getting him through the process. And then he didn't know what else was available, or he didn't know how to get to any other message. And these people kept insisting he talk, so that's what he'd give them. But you see, by the time we got all the way down the road, and a lot of it was focused on the dog, he was able to genuinely communicate.
Does anyone hearing this have any questions for Sheela? Any thoughts on something you've just done repeatedly, even though it was no longer fulfilling? We would love your comments. So how do you get someone to see the next level of possible in their life? I don't know if I'm articulating away, but like, someone's not going to be motivated to do therapy if they think I'm just going to go downhill, and this practice isn't helping at all. It's just boring, and it's not helping. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting the therapist's time. On and on and on, and woe is me. And pretty soon the client has talked themselves out of any possibility of exerting effort to make progress.
I think for me, it was always if I could get to the interactive place with the client and we could focus primarily on, again, something that individual liked. So whether it was talking about the Super Bowl and look at Tom Brady and he's 45 years old or something, and with older age adults who've had neurological damage from strokes or something, we oftentimes now use speech generating devices to have pictures and stories about their fishing trip or their grandkids or whatever. Because we like to tell each other stories and we like to go to fun places together, even if it's just talking about it. So I had a patient one time who was a severe stutterer. And stuttering is a neurological disorder in one way or another. And he had missed the opportunity to have several promotions because he couldn't manage his stuttering.
Which I suppose then made him more anxious and made the studying more of an issue. Oh,
Round and round.
oh gosh.
So he only had like 10 sessions for us to work together that his company was going to pay for. So as we got along, and I won't bore you with, because there is a whole protocol for how to do these and manage it. But he had gotten to the point where he had to practice implementing the management techniques. And I said, well, you've got to convince me through your talking to me to do something that you really like and I don't necessarily have an interest in. And he chose this is how old I am. He chose the TV program Alf. And he asked me if I'd ever watched Alf, which I had not. I didn't watch TV in those days. And frankly, the little bit I'd watched, I thought it was stupid, and that's what I said to it. And he said, okay, that's the goal. And in the next 2 sessions, he not only personally applied his management techniques, but he, honest to goodness, convinced me to watch Alf. And I watched Alf and became a lifelong Alf fan.
Wow.
And see, that's the magic. That's the magic, Jason.
Wow.
The togetherness, the giving that we do with each other.
In the finding what creates mutual interest.
And caring and fun and being.
And you gave him a challenge that didn't have exactly to do with not studying. His challenge was to convince you of something using his voice, but not to talk perfectly, but to.
Yes.
Wow.
And every time now, I only occasionally get to see something that's Alf related. But every time I do, I'm always like, I have no idea, I can't remember his name, but I can see him in my mind, and I'm just delighted. It's like, I'm like, wow, look at what you gave me.
This is such an awesome point. When we go to a doctor, a speech therapist, something we so often as a patient fall into the trap of thinking the exchange is one-sided, like the doctor is healing us or giving to us, but you're saying your patients, your clients also give to you and enhance your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Would you
Every
talk
time.
more about the reciprocity?
Yes, always. My whole life, that's why I love doing it, is because either a small bit or in your case, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to, in your case, it's a huge amount of giving you have given to me. And even when I see your slogan on the Facebook or something, my heart lifts and it makes me happy.
Hmm.
Yes.
That's nice to hear. What gosh, I'm still getting some echo. What can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
What would you say to someone who was thinking that I don't have anything to give my doctor or my accountant, fill in the blank professional? Like what's the patient's the client's role in the mutual reciprocity?
Well, I think your dad has hit on it in his book about kindness. So at first, when you mentioned the accountant, I absolutely positively hate talking money. I hate going to the CPA. I hate making those plans. I always feel as incompetent as I've ever felt in my life. And I'm always worried. It brings out all the anxiety. I'm going to be an old lady and starving to death. But I've learned to try to be appreciative to start with. So I've learned to say to him, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your patience, because I'm going to need both of those, you know. And he softens then when he talks to me. I can see it because he starts out knowing that I'm all tight, and he wants to give me all this information because that's his role, see. And I've learned if I thank him for that, it sort of shortens the gap between us. And then as we get to know each other, we find certain mutual places that we both enjoy.
Mutual interests again.
What?
You find mutual interests again.
Even if it's just jokes about something.
What a much more productive stance than going in there and begrudging the accountant of knowing so much and being kind of bitter. Oh my gosh, I'm paying you money for this and I shouldn't have to pay you and you charge so much and blah, blah, blah.
And most of them, I think they must get trained in this. I don't know. But they lecture, they give you a lecture on, well, you've only got so much. And when you're 85, you're not going to be able to make a whole lot more. So you better stretch, and it just brings out all the, like you say, bitterness and defensiveness on my part. But if I sort of mellow out and thank him for what he's doing and acknowledge that I appreciate the admonitions, even though I don't. You know what I mean?
Do you have a story of someone who had one of your patients who have very limited vocal skills still expressing appreciation to you in a way that made your day? Or made your...
Yes, it's you're wonderful at this, see, because it's like putting a nickel in me. You just put the nickel and I've got it. But the people who use speech generating devices in like motorized wheelchairs and that sort of thing, the opportunities to go to these very special normal places are limited. But there's also, along with communication verbally, there's a lot of looking and pointing and all that sort of stuff, and just a general aura of liking each other, kindness, goodness. So I have a friend named Gus. He won't care that I tell this, who uses a speech generating device. He has athetoid and spastic cerebral palsy. So,
Which means what?
which athetoid is the writhing movements that you can't get to where you want to get easily, and spastic is tight. And when you have them both, it's very hard to hit all the buttons. Yeah.
Takes
But
a lot of energy, probably.
yes. But he learned to use his equipment very good, but it's like you say, tiring, and you've got to believe there's going to be return for this to make that effort. And so he and I and Drew had gone out to dinner together, and it was a process because he has to come on an adapted bus, and then we had to find a place to sit, and then of course he has to be fed, and by this time it's late at night, and he's about 32 years old when this happens, and we're getting ready to go home, and we're seeing to it that he's going to get on his bus line to be able to get back to his house. And we're all tired, and the bus hasn't come. And Drew says to him, I bet you can't wait to get out of here. And he punches the button, and he painstakingly, and about the time that he's putting out the message, you got that right, this very beautiful, very buxom girl walks by him, and as fast as he could, he hit the button, and it said, or not. Yeah. We were, all in a fun place.
That's so wonderful. Or not.
Or not.
This brings up what are some pieces of what are some general things you have learned about life from your clients that have inspired you to become the best version of yourself?
Well, I have one that I was hoping I could find a way to bring this in, and I think
now would be the perfect time.
I think so. Okay, along with the joy and the challenge of providing therapy for a wide variety of needs while I was at Children's National Medical Center is right down DC, heart of DC, and it has as its mission to provide the best care for every child around the world. And
just a small mission, not too big.
yeah, right. But it truly was something that we all believed and tried to do one kid at a time. Well, while all this is going on, as you might imagine, this is a hub of a place. It's big, and there is such a wide variety of people coming in and out, and there are a lot of celebrity sort of events. And those are wonderful and have value and can be exciting, but they do not involve, like me, because the celebrities come to see certain kids or whatever. So there is a consistent thing that happens at Children's every year, that the First Lady comes to Children's to read a story to some of the kids who are there at Children's in the hospital.
That's a big celebrity sort of thing. Wow.
Yes, sir, it certainly is. And it involves the whole hospital, but it doesn't. And so it starts with, as an employee, you get a big long email that says, we will be having an important visitor. They never identify who it is, but after you've worked there a while, you know, yeah, it's Christmas. She's coming, you know. And it says, she is not, or this person is not coming to see you. This person doesn't want to see you, and you don't need to see her, and on and on about how don't you dare mess up the plans that will be in place, and don't you this, don't you do that. Well,
this is great employee relations right here.
Oh, and this takes place on the first floor of the hospital in what is the atrium, like the big receiving area. And they have the biggest Christmas tree I've ever seen in my life, with a big rocking chair and all this. All right. So, and you never know when this is going to happen, because that makes sense. But anyway, you don't. You just know that the day that you get there and you can't find a parking place and there is police everywhere, well, this must be the day when this is going to happen.
So your life, your day becomes more stressful, and you can't attend the event, like a double whammy.
Absolutely, you are spot on. And as you well know me, by this time, truly, this is my life. These are my babies that are coming in the door to see us. And so I'm sort of like, you get your celebrity action over there and leave my babies alone. And I wanted to make sure I had a trail through all this paraphernalia so that I could say to my patients, come this way and let's go over here and let's get into the clinic. Okay, so I'm doing this and I'm not in the best of moods, because it's like you said, it's demanding. And I have gone to the various doors to make sure that I know the route in and to tell people, to show people how to get to us. And I'm stuck in an area here, and never in my whole life have I been important enough for somebody to call me overhead. And suddenly I get this, Sheela Stuart, report to the clinic. Sheela Stuart, report to the clinic. You can only imagine. I thought somebody died. I thought some horrible thing had happened. I elbows and knees all my way back to the clinic. I throw open the door. I go in there, and standing in front of our reception area was Santa Claus, a Secret Service man, and one of those femme fatale model sort of 6-inch high heel PR people. Those three characters are standing there when I go in, and I go, who needs what? I'm Sheela Stuart. Who needs what? And the PR person comes out and says, we have a special favor to ask you. And I think, oh. And I say, okay.
Can you see I'm busy? But okay.
Not the most welcoming, not practicing any of that stuff I was saying. I go, okay.
You weren't trying to find mutual interest with them at
not
this
too
moment.
much, not too hard. And she says, well, somebody told me that you have special knowledge about dogs. And I said, well, I don't know if I'd claim special knowledge, but I have experience. Well, we need someone to take care of Bo and Sonny. Do you know who Bo and Sonny are? Bo and Sonny are the Portuguese water dogs that belong to President Obama and Mrs. Obama.
Wow.
And they have come to be a part of the visit, but a very small part. And in the meantime, they need somebody to take care of them in a close proximity to this Christmas tree and all that. So, could you, would you? And I said, well, of course, I'll be happy to. Well, can I bring back some of my kids? No, you have to do it yourself with one other staff person. So the clinic coordinator loved dogs too. So for an hour, she and I babysat Bo and Sonny. Now, to me, that's such a marvelous example of when the world looks like it's going one direction, and all of a sudden, like you say, an opportunity opens. And friends of mine would say later, did you get to meet Obama? Did you get to meet Mrs. Obama? And the answer was no. And I met the part of the family I really was most interested in. So I hope that sort of fit.
So if you had been like, I don't like this day, the special guest thing, I'm going to call in sick, you would have missed all that.
That's right. Or even if I'd have been very negative when I got there, more negative than I was, they would have thought, we don't want to deal with her. We'll find somebody else.
And now this bad story turned into this amazing, this day that was going to be horrible and
Challenging.
horrible but stressful turned into this amazing story you can tell and retell and
forever. And I can tell you that Sonny was a lot more fun than Bo was. Dogs have personalities too, you know. And Bo was just sort of like, ho-hum, more people, whatever. But Sonny was like, what are you guys doing in here?
So sweet.
We could play ball with Sonny and do some fun things.
Sweet. So as we wrap up, I want to tell you you did really good as my speech therapist, and this is a story I haven't appreciated until more recent years. But so I attended the school you worked at for a number of years, which at the time was called Crippled Children's Hospital and School. Thank goodness they've since changed their name. But then it came time for me to be mainstreamed into a private school and then a public school. But you could have said, hey, I like Jason. But he's learned as much as he can from me, and he has more to learn. But he's leaving, so he's not my responsibility. But you offered to teach me once a week in your home for years.
It was such a privilege. It made me so happy because number one, I missed you. So it was fun to see you again. And I just kept hoping that I could find one more thing that would help.
And and whatever combination of things you've tried, they really worked. I've spoken in front of 3,000 high school students. I've done a TEDx talk. I'm doing a podcast. I'm speaking all the time as my career, and you help give me confidence in my voice as it was, as it is, and give me confidence to practice as it is, and that's what I've needed, because as I practice, things improve, which is a huge deal. It's transformed my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one final question before we go.
Okay.
I talk about doing our imperfect best a lot, and what by that I mean, even though life has imperfections, we still see our best. We hold the vision in our minds and we in our hearts, and we go for it. What does doing our imperfect best mean to you?
It means not allowing the perceived lack of excellence that we'd like to have achieved, not allowing that to keep us from the wonderful possibilities that are right there if we take advantage of them. So it means going back to the department and pulling the door open and going in and saying, okay, here I am. And discovering, of course, that something I would really like to do was right there.
You're referring back to the dogs.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And it proves we've been in each other's lives a long times. Because when you started saying that definition, I instantly thought of Obama's dogs in that story.
Because, see, I'm not a specialist. I don't have agility championships with dogs. I haven't done what one of the things would be a dream for me that I doubt I'll ever get. So it would be easy to say, I don't know what the heck they want, and I'm no good anyway at anything that has to do with this. So, but instead, I went in the door to see what was going on, and I got to do this, even though I'm a very imperfect dog person.
And to tie it all together, talk about these people you went in and wanted to yell, "What do you want to?" They met you by finding your mutual interest and giving you a task to do related to something you love.
Exactly.
Well, so that story was perfect because it ties everything together on so many levels.
Good.
Well, this has been such an honor to have my speech language pathologist SLP on Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Thank you so much for all your mentoring, for being a dear friend all these years, and for being on the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being you and for the journey that we'll continue to take together.
So good.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, and now it's time to wrap this up. And so we do Mr. Ending here, which is right here. Thank you before I do that, thanks so much for tuning in. Your time is precious. Thanks for spending some of it with me and my guest, Sheela Stuart.